Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 19 of the Going Ballistic podcast. Once again, I'm coming to you from the road, so apologies for the road noise or the bad audio quality. But that's kind of what you get if you want podcasts. So I don't have the time to do much anymore in my new studio, and I'm trying to make sure you guys get new podcasts. So here's the compromise. I appreciate you guys still following along and spreading the word. So thank you very much. Speaking of not having time, one of the reasons I don't have a whole lot of time is I finally launched, or I don't know, pre-launched a new product I've been working on. It's called RocketFFL. You can find it at RocketFFL.com. Novel idea. The product or the service is helping you get your FFL on your own. So your federal firearms license, you can buy, sell, make firearms for profit, but also so you can become an SOT, which is a type of taxpayer you can become, which allows you to deal in NFA firearms. Man, there's a lot of acronyms here. NFA firearms like silencers and short-barreled rifles and machine guns. Yes, machine guns. You can make them or buy them or sell them depending on what kind of license or what kind of SOT you become. And then there's also a whole lot of training, because just getting your FFL and becoming an SOT is the first step. The next step is staying in business and staying out of trouble. So there's myriad rules and regulations and things to follow. And I hope that you guys have a little bit of faith in the fact that I like teaching, and I hopefully can break complicated things down simply. So it's not just compliance training that says, here's 100 things you've got to worry about. It's compliance training that breaks it down, gives you kind of tools and ways to think about things, so you can navigate those things on your own. Now, right now, the only part of it that's up is the Get Your FFL part. And that's because I'm trying to do a little bit of what I call, I guess, a pre-launch. Is I'm learning about marketing. I don't know this stuff. So some of the stuff that I've been reading says you got to get it out there to get feedback and get to see if people like it or not. And then as you get going, you can have people sign up for special offers or things like that. So that's what I'm doing, is I have it out there. I have a bunch of the videos already produced that go along with each of the lessons, but they're not all posted yet. Matter of fact, even some of the content towards the end of the first guide is still draft content. It's not up there yet. So what it is it's an online learning system that allows you to follow along on your phone or your computer, and you can drop off and pick back up wherever you want, and it keeps your progress through the course as you go. It lets you know how far you have to go, helps you maybe keep it organized, things like that. So I like it. And also, once you're in the system, it allows you to add on the other courses, and I try to give discounts and as I figure those kind of things out. But when you get employees, for gun shops out there, if you have employees that you need to get trained, the idea is you're going to have very simple, very base level employee training. So you can sit a brand new employee down for an hour, as an example, when they first show up on their first day, and say, look, just sit and learn from this right here. And you're going to be able to get them to get the basics. So at least they know what a bound book is. They know what serial numbers are. They know things like that, and get them on their way. And they're very inexpensive courses. And then when you start to get more advanced, you need to start worrying about ITAR and export controls and things like that. Well, hopefully you'll come back and be able to do some more training with that too. So I don't know. I hope it'll work out. I think it'll be a fun thing for me to do. I hope it'll be a good service for you guys. So if you can, go check it out, RocketFFL.com, and tell me what you think. I did it all myself, which means I'm proud of it, but I'm also a little nervous, so I could use the feedback. Is it laid out right? Does it give the information you're looking for? Sign up for a course if you want. I'd really appreciate it. And help keep things like this podcast and stuff going. It helps monetize it all. I'm kind of my own advertiser, so again, I'd appreciate it. And another thing I advertise, of course, is my book. Still going great. Back on the bestseller list. Had a little bit of a gap as some of the Kindle books on Amazon got ranked in there, but it's back as the #1 bestseller, which is kind of cool. The Long Range Shooting Handbook. The support has been amazing. I went and tallied up the numbers again. I haven't looked at them since it had been a complete year, and it's north of 20,000 copies right now. I went and actually had a great event in Savannah with the family with the Sua Sponte Foundation, which is one of the charities that, of course, is supported by the book. and we did a little bit of the math and found out that actually has been almost $50,000 raised so far. I was hesitant about sharing the number, but the guy that runs the 6.5 Foundation, amazing guy, said, no, you're supposed to brag about that. So if he's right, I just did. There you go. So Savannah, some of you may not know, that's one where 1st Ranger Battalion is, where I was stationed. They have an amazing St. Patrick's Day celebration. I've heard it's 2nd biggest in the country. I have no idea if that's true, but it's fun to say, so everyone says it. The parade is 3.5, 4 hours long, and the Rangers end up marching in the parade, which is always funny because Rangers can't march. So whenever we had change of command ceremonies or things like this to do, you almost have guys bumping into each other, which shocks some people because I guess they picture some super professional, well-dressed group of soldiers, but it's not true. We trained to shoot and fight. I didn't train to march, which I think was the right order of priorities. But the idea is in the parade, when the Rangers go down the parade, they end up, by the end of the parade, with hopefully bright red lipstick all over their faces because the girls come running up and kiss them and put green beads around their neck, and it's a good time for all. So it was great to see that. My kids got to see it. My daughter got to see the soldiers out there in the parade. She thought that was really cool. She couldn't believe that those guys used to be my friends, or I used to be that, but oh well, maybe someday. But the highlight of the weekend was the Ranger Ball. So the Ranger Ball happens only every couple of years, and even then, depending on deployment schedules and how busy people are, you don't always get to go. So I got to go once when I was in. It was a great time, and it's, from what I gather, it's rare for civilians to be able to go. So I was very honored that my wife and I got to go to the ball. We got to be guests there, and we got to sit right up near the front, and it was great. I got to see some Ranger Punch being made. For those of you that follow me on Facebook, go check me out if you don't. We're on Instagram. On Instagram, it's just Kleckner. And on Facebook, it's Ryan Kleckner. You can see I have a private profile that I keep for my family and friends that I actually know. And then I have a public-facing profile where I keep updates about products I'm coming out with, or updates on articles like the 300 Norma mag versus the 338 Lapua mag article. I posted that on there. I also posted some pictures from Ranger Ball of making the Ranger Punch. So the Ranger Punch is really cool. What it is they have a different Ranger come out representing each different major time period or campaign of the Rangers. Now, when I went to the ball when I was in, they actually had the Rangers come out dressed up like the Rangers in that time period, and they each gave like a little speech of their own. But this time they had one person sitting there narrating everything while each Ranger came out and added the liquor. Well, it starts off with Jack Daniels, from, early American Revolutionary times, from, mash whiskey. It goes on to rice wine. It goes on to all sorts of liquors. But each Ranger that comes out, I don't know, I'm guessing 20 or 30 different liquors go into this thing, will stand there while they read the small section of Ranger history, and then they will chug as much of the liquor as they can. And they started it out right. You got a guy up there chugging Jack Daniels. I didn't realize how old I was until my stomach turned sour at the thought of that. And then they take the remainder of whatever's left in the bottle and they pour it into the giant punch bowl, this gorgeous silver punch bowl, and they go bottle by bottle and mix this nasty stuff. And then they bring out sand. There's a guy that actually will take and throw sand in his mouth. I guess that's his chugging, and add sand in there from Desert Storm. They'll add gunpowder. They will add a can of Copenhagen, swamp water from the Savannah swamps. It gets pretty nasty. And then the youngest Ranger at the time will get up there and take a canteen cup and load it up full of the Ranger Punch, and the commander and the sergeant major will each drink from it. And it's a great time had by all. Everyone's hooping and hollering and screaming. They offered up for everyone to drink, and I think some people normally drink it, but this time nobody did. And I was feeling sick, which I don't know if you can hear my voice. I'm still a little sick. I chickened out. I didn't do it, but we had a great night anyway. So it was a good time. You guys have been sending in so many emails with so many questions, which I love, but I haven't kept up with it very well, so I'm sorry. I'm going to try and go by memory since I'm in the car here and since I'm having so many other things going on. Rodney sent in a whole bunch, so Rodney, thanks. He actually had said when he had first sent the message in that he had seen my videos I'd done at the NSSF, and how when he first saw them, he thought I was like some school teacher or a pastor or something. He didn't believe I was actually in the military. Rodney, that's just because I've gotten old and fat. So sorry, man. I need to get probably in better shape to hold up the persona a little bit better. But he had some great questions, and one of the questions was, what steps of reloading do I think are unnecessary? He gave his examples, like annealing or weight sorting or turning the necks or things like that. As with a lot of things, I'm going to give a bad answer. I'm sorry, man, and tell you it depends. If you're looking to reload like I like to reload, which is just a means to an end to get out and shoot, I don't do any of those things. I don't anneal. I don't case sort. I won't even sort sometimes by manufacturer of the brass. I have, for like 308, for example, I have Rubbermaid bins full of clean 308. And I reach into the bin and I use the same primers and I measure out the powder and I use the same bullets, but that's about it. So I'll resize them. I'll clean them to get the lube off and polish them up, and they'll sit there in a bin until I need to reload. I'll throw in 100 primers into a Dillon progressive reloader, and I'll crank out the powder. If I want to get more accurate, sometimes I'll take my little RCBS powder measure, which I'll throw one at a time, but I'll load up a tray of all the brass after I put the primers in, and I'll just dump the powder. I'll confirm the weight to make sure it's weighed out, but I don't even sit there and weigh out every single one most of the time. I'll just make sure it's on close enough. I'll dump a bunch of powder. I'll seat the bullets. I'll go out and shoot, and I'll get a half minute out of them, maybe 3/4 of a minute. But then again, I'm not a group shooter. I don't shoot great groups. That's not my idea of fun. I'm more of a tactical style, trying to shoot moving targets, shooting targets at different distances, shooting from different platforms. And yeah, if I was a bench rest shooter, I would take way more care. Now, that gives you a bad picture, because I don't mean to say that stuff's not important. It is. It's important if that's what you want. If you want the best precision ever, then yeah, you got to do those things. So in the advanced version of my long-range shooting book that I know I'm way behind on, I'm sorry, guys, I'm trying my best, I talk about a lot of these things. That doesn't mean they're absolutely necessary, though. I talk about what weight sorting can do for you. I talk about what turning the necks can do for you. I talk about what all the annealing does and why it could be important. But kind of like in my basic version of the book, I talk about the Coriolis effect. That doesn't mean I account for it every single time when I'm shooting, or actually probably hardly ever when I'm shooting, honestly. But it's still a variable. It still can affect your shot. Does it matter? I don't know. It depends on how far you're shooting and how accurate you want. I just don't like reloading that much. For me, reloading is a chance to fiddle with gun stuff without having to go to the range. It's a chance to tailor a load exactly the way I like it. But that's about it. Great buddy of mine I got into reloading with, we used to joke around that we should call ourselves the Close Enough Reloading Company, because so many times we'd shrug our shoulders and be like, yeah, close enough. As long as it was safe, it got me better accuracy and better results than I could get with factory ammo, and that's all I was looking for. When I'm tailoring a load or I'm trying to do load development, sometimes I'll take more time. But honestly, I don't turn necks. I barely trim the brass like I should. I'm a horrible example. I'll clean my precision rifle barrels well, but I don't even clean my ARs or pistols or things like that very, very good either. Maybe that's a bad example. Maybe that's not. But, so there's your answer, Rodney. Does it matter? Yeah, absolutely it matters if you're trying to set a world record or shoot a great group or get the best precision you can get. 100% it matters. For what I'm doing, maybe not. I'm more ready to get out and shoot and get good enough performance. So that's where I'm at with it. Rodney also asked about positional shooting. And this kind of rolls into my reloading points, is that I love positional shooting. I think that's one of the best ways actually to get better at shooting, is getting unstable. Because I don't want to say it's easy when you're stable, but it sure is easier. And when you're on a bench and you're bagged in and everything's perfectly stable, you're kind of testing the equipment now, not necessarily yourself. So when you get into different shooting positions and you introduce some instability, it actually makes you work on getting to be a better shooter. And turning necks and annealing and all that it's important when you want those good groups. But if you're shooting from an awkward position where your group is going to open up anyway, I'd rather load more ammo to go practice than maybe do that. But I get it. There's a point to it. And maybe in one of the future podcasts, I'll cover exactly what a kneeling does or why you should turn next. And maybe, Roddy, that's what you're looking for. I'm sorry. But speaking of reloading, I kind of ditching a caliber that I really liked, which is a big deal for me. I haven't been the biggest 6.5 Creedmoor fan. I don't know if that's because everybody else already is one and I wanted to just be a little counterculture, or maybe I got that the 6.5 by 47 Lapua I liked a lot better. And there's two reasons I liked it. One is the longer, more efficient bullets. So like 140 grain Berger hybrid. They need to be seated out quite a bit based on the curve of the bullet in order for the neck to be on there. And on some 6.5 Creedmoors, that bullet, when it's seated back far enough to fit into a magazine, which to me, if you're going to have a 6.5 Creedmoor, you might as well have it magazine fed, it gets seated back too far. You don't have enough length. Where the 6.5 by 47 Lapua is a little bit shorter of a case. It's about, I don't know, 1/10 of an inch shorter, which is just enough to be the perfect length for these long bullets. So that was one reason it made sense to me, is even though it was not as much power, I shouldn't say power, what's the way to say it? Even though there's not as much case capacity, so you may not be able to get up into as much pressure with not having as much powder, you at least had a better fit for the bullet and for accuracy. I don't have to worry about so much of the length of the magazine because I have plenty of room. Another reason I like the 6.5 by 47 Lapua is it used a small rifle primer. Well, it does use, still does. That's beneficial for a couple reasons. One, and this is completely not scientific at all. I might even be making this up. Who knows? But in my experience, primers can be some of the least consistent components in your cartridge. When we spend all this time making the bullets perfect, we spend all this focus and energy on how we can get the powder to be less temperature sensitive and how we can measure out the powder exactly with all these scales. You'll have guys that'll weigh their cases and even sort by volume and turn the necks like we talked about and trim and anneal and all this kind of stuff. But then they just open up a package of primers and throw the primers in. That's partly because we don't have any way to control it. I mean, you buy nice primers and you put them in. The problem is the way primers are made is pretty inconsistent. I mean, the best way I can describe how some primers are made is kind of like if you could picture a t-shirt being silk screened. If you've ever seen that, you have the compound on the table and you have a tray with a bunch of holes and it's smeared across the tray so it gets down in the holes and then moves on to the next station. Well, the problem is then you go from there to drying, and then you have a little anvil in there, which is a little piece of metal that is struck against with the firing pin, and sometimes there's foil, and when there's jostling around, sometimes the primer mixture can break up, sometimes the anvil can move, so you can have all this inconsistency, and even just the amount itself isn't really weighed out with the insane detail that the powder is when you're sitting at home. Now, you can get some really good primers. My essentially favorite primers are Federal Gold Medal Match primers. And as far as I understand, they just weigh them and try and get as consistent as possible. But even then, you're going to have different ignition. So you have this potential for inconsistency. And in my opinion, not fact, the more primer mixture you have, the bigger capacity for that primer mixture, the more likely you are to have a bigger difference in the primer going off. So let's say there's a 10% difference. Well, if it's a little small amount of mixture, that 10% is not much. As you get bigger, there's a lot more there. So with a small primer, you actually can get more consistent results. Now, the whole reasoning behind it all, I might have just made up. That's what I think happens. But the fact remains, some testing by Lapua and other people proves that actually the smaller primers are more consistent. So whether I'm right on why, they actually get more consistent. The other benefit to the small primers is you can get some higher pressures. So you don't have that same big surface area, which is a weaker metal, because remember the primer cup needs to be weak enough to be dented easily by the firing pin. You don't have this big surface area of weak metal that can blow out with too much pressure, or that can deform back into the bolt face. And you don't have the big hole, what they call the flash hole, which is where the flame goes from the primer into the cartridge case. You can get a smaller hole. Well, a smaller hole means less pressure is going to go through, so you can have higher pressures. So you have a small rifle primer, you can get more consistent ignition, and you can run some higher pressure. So to me, the 6.5 by 47 Lapua was a win all the way around. A little bit shorter to allow the bullets to stick out a little bit longer. You have a little bit less case capacity, but I can run it at slightly higher pressures and I can get more consistent with small rifle primers. So to me, it was a win-win. Well, the problem is it's hard to deal with because now I have this unique cartridge that whenever a new rifle comes out I want to get, they're not going to have the rifle in that caliber. You know, I got those new the fixed rifles from Q, for example. They come in 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor. It's just like, dang it. I have this really fancy round that's hard to use, and I want to build my rifles in it, but none of you guys are going to have the cartridge because it's so rare. So then here comes Lapua. Oh, wow, almost forgot another reason. Lapua makes brass for it. The 6.5 Creedmoor brass was largely kind of bad. Well, I shouldn't say bad, but it wasn't great. There's no good source out there for super consistent and good quality brass. So there's another reason for reloading. You know, I told people, if you want to buy factory ammo, get the 6.5 Creedmoor. If you want to reload, do the 6.5 by 47 Lapua, or do like a 260 Remington or something. Because both of those latter two cartridges, the brass is made by Lapua, which is the best brass in the world. Well, then all of a sudden I find out Lapua is going to make 6.5 Creedmoor brass. Great. I'm super excited they're doing it, but it was kind of a bummer because that was the whole reasoning I was, you know, part of the reason I was going with these other cartridges. So now that Lapua makes 6.5 Creedmoor brass, wouldn't you know, the people that figured out that small rifle primers are actually better, they make their brass with the small rifle primer. So except for the bullet seating depth, I've kind of run out of reasons not to do the 6.5 Creedmoor now. Small primer, higher pressures, best quality brass you could possibly get. And now we get to that bullet seating issue. Berger came out with an awesome 130 grain hybrid, which is the perfect length for magazines. I'm using the Hornady ELDs, which are the perfect length for magazines. I have some Sierra Match Kings, the new tip Match Kings, which are the perfect length for magazines. So now with these three awesome bullets I could be using in a 6.5 Creedmoor with perfect brass and small primers, I think I've made the switch. And I think you can tell that by a shipment I just got this morning, which was 15, I actually forget, cases of 6.5 Creedmoor brass from Lapua. I ordered enough, they sent me a nice tumbler with the Lapua logo on it. Because I figure if I'm going to do it, I might as well go big. So maybe I'll put a picture up on Instagram once I figure out how many cases I actually ordered. So there's a little bit of gun talk for you guys. I think I've converted over. So if anyone wants some 6.5 by 47 Lapua brass, I have some fresh brass. Matter of fact, I think a bunch of it already has federal and gold medal match primers in it. I'll sell it super cheap. You guys just let me know. So yeah, might have converted over. So for some other products news, I have only 2 of those, the fixed rifles left. So if you or somebody you know wants one, come get it. I might order more. Not sure as of right now, but I only have 2 left. I also got in on the early list, as in the paperwork is already going with the ATF. So I'll have them in my grubby hands in a couple of weeks. The new Q Erector Silencers. If you can't tell, I'm loving what they're doing. The Erector Silencer is that a 22 silencer that is a bunch of small baffles that all screw together. So you can just put 1 or 2 baffles on the end of your rifle if you want it. It's hearing safe. It's loud, but it's hearing safe and tiny. Or you can screw all 10 baffles on together. It's genius. It's the same concept as having an outer tube with all the smaller baffles inside. They just got rid of the tube, made the baffles screw together. They're awesome. I have 5 of them coming. 1 of them's mine. 2 other ones already spoken for, so there's 2 left. Go check out kleckner.co. That's just .co if you want to check out any of the products. Again, please check out RocketFFL. Let me know what you think. Get your FFL, become an SOT, get some training. Keep supporting the book. Long Range Shooting Handbook on Amazon. I really appreciate it, guys. You're the best. Sorry for the delay in podcasts, but here's another one. Until next time, take care.